Beneath the chandelier's golden glow, the midnight ball swirled in a haze of silken secrets. London's elite, masked and merry, danced in Lord Ashburn's opulent estate. Yet, as the clock struck 12, a scream shattered the revelry. In the conservatory, Lady Evelyn Ashburn lay lifeless, her champagne flute shattered, its contents laced with poison. A diamond brooch, her signature adornment, was missing. Whispers of scandal rippled through the crowd. Hercule Poirot, present by chance, surveyed the scene with piercing eyes. Who among these masked faces hid a murderer's heart? The game of death had begun. Chapter 1. The Masked Assembly. The grand ballroom of Ashbourne Manor shimmered under the weight of 1,000 candles, their flames dancing in the crystal chandeliers like stars trapped in glass. It was the night of the Midnight Ball, an annual spectacle that drew London's elite to Lord Reginald Ashbourne's sprawling estate in the heart of the 1920s. The air was thick with the scent of tuberose and ambition, as masked figures in silks and satins glided across the polished oak floor. Feathers and jewels adorned faces, rendering the familiar strange, as laughter and the clink of champagne flutes wove a tapestry of decadence. Yet, beneath the revelry, an undercurrent of secrets pulsed, as if the very walls of the manor whispered of hidden truths. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a moustache as precise as his mind, stood at the edge of the ballroom, an observer rather than a participant. He had been invited as a curiosity, a parlour trick for the aristocracy, who delighted in his reputation for unravelling the impossible. His sharp eyes, hidden behind a simple black domino mask, scanned the crowd. Every gesture, every glance was a clue to the human heart, and Poirot's little grey cells were already at work, cataloguing the subtleties of this glittering assembly. At the centre of the throng was Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, the evening's undisputed queen.
Evelyn, a feud born of social slights and whispered scandals. Nearby, Dr. Richard Mortimer, the Ashbourne family physician, stood with a glass of untouched champagne, his silver mask revealing only his piercing blue eyes. His calm demeanour suggested a man accustomed to crises, yet Poirot detected a faint tremor in his hand. A sign of nerves, perhaps. Beatrice Lyle, the young maid, moved through the crowd with a tray of drinks, her plain black mask a stark contrast to the opulence around her. She kept her head down, but Poirot noticed her eyes darting toward Evelyn, as if drawn by some unspoken fear. Finally, Victor Crane, a business rival of Lord Ashburn, lingered near the French doors, his hawk-like mask askew, as if he cared little for the pretense of anonymity. His presence was bold, almost defiant, given the rumours of his failed merger with the Ashbournes years ago. The clock neared midnight, and the atmosphere grew feverish. Guests swirled faster, their masks slipping as wine loosened tongues. Poirot, sipping a mineral water, felt a prickle of unease. Something was amiss, though he could not yet name it. His instincts, honed by years of unravelling human deceit, whispered of danger lurking beneath the revelry. Then, as the grandfather clock in the hall began its 12 solemn chimes, a scream pierced the air. The music faltered, and the dancers froze, their masks turning toward the conservatory. Poirot, already moving, pushed through the crowd, his small frame surprisingly agile. He reached the glass-walled conservatory, its tropical plants casting eerie shadows in the moonlight, and found the source of the chaos. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne lay crumpled on the marble floor, her emerald gown fanned out like spilled ink. Her mask had fallen, revealing a face frozen in a rictus of agony. A shattered champagne flute lay beside her, its contents pooling on the stone, exuding a faint, bitter almond scent. Cyanide, Poirot deduced with a grim nod. The diamond brooch, her signature adornment, was conspicuously absent, its absence as glaring as a shout. A crowd gathered, gasping and whispering, but Poirot raised a hand. Efficiency, though his verdict was unnecessary. "She's gone," he murmured, his voice steady, but his hands trembling. Beatrice Lyle hovered at the edge, her tray abandoned, her face ashen. Victor Crane lingered by the door, his hawk mask now in place, watching with an intensity that unnerved Poirot. The detective's mind raced. Cyanide required premeditation, and the missing brooch suggested a motive beyond murder, greed, revenge, or a deeper secret. A scrap of paper, half hidden beneath Evelyn's hand, caught his eye. He retrieved it with a handkerchief, revealing a single line in elegant script. "The mask hides all. A clue, a taunt, or a distraction." Poirot tucked it away, his thoughts already weaving a tapestry of possibilities. He turned to the guests, now a murmuring throng behind hastily donned masks. "No one leaves this estate," he declared. "The murderer is among us." Whispers of scandal and fear rippled through the crowd, and Poirot felt the weight of their hidden truths. Each suspect had a motive, he mused. Reginald's debts were no secret. Evelyn's wealth propped up his failing ventures. Clara's rivalry with Evelyn was the talk of society, a wound festering from public humiliation. Dr. Mortimer's access to poisons was damning. At his calm demeanor hid a nervous edge. Beatrice's fear suggested a secret, perhaps one Evelyn knew. And Victor Crane's presence, so bold in enemy territory, hinted at old grudges unresolved. Poirot began his inquiries, moving among the suspects with the precision of a surgeon. Lord Ashburn, when pressed, admitted Evelyn had no known enemies, but his hesitation spoke volumes. "She was beloved," he insisted, yet his eyes avoided Poirot's. Clara Vane, questioned next, offered a saccharine smile. "Evelyn and I had our differences, but murder? Absurd." Her alibi, a visit to the powder room, was vague, and Poirot noted a torn hem on her gown, as if she'd moved in haste. Dr. Mortimer claimed he was tending a guest's minor injury during the murder, but the guest, flushed with wine, could barely confirm his own name. "Beatrice is the true labyrinth." Someone in this opulent hall had orchestrated death with chilling precision. The poison, the note, the missing brooch, all were pieces of a puzzle only his little gray cells could solve. But time was short. The killer, masked by the crowd, might strike again to protect their secret. Poirot's gaze lingered on the suspects, each a study in contrasts. Reginald's feigned grief, Clara's calculated charm, Mortimer's clinical calm, Beatrice's nervous deference, and Victor's bold defiance. The pearl, the note, the cyanide, they were threads in a tapestry of betrayal, but the pattern remained elusive. As he paced the conservatory, the scent of tropical blooms mingled with the acrid tang of poison, a reminder of the night's dual nature, beauty masking death. Chapters of motive. The library of Ashbourne Manor was a sanctuary of silence, its towering shelves heavy with leather-bound tomes and the weight of secrets. Hercule Poirot stood by a roaring fire, its crackle the only sound as he faced Lord Reginald Ashbourne. The lion mask lay discarded on a mahogany table, and Reginald's face, lined with fatigue, betrayed more than grief. Poirot's sharp eyes missed nothing. The tremor in Reginald's hand as he poured brandy, the faint sheen of sweat on his brow, despite the cool night. The midnight ball's gaiety had evaporated, replaced by the chill of suspicion that clung to the manor like fog. "Monsieur Ashbourne," Poirot began, his voice soft but piercing, "you say your wife had no enemies, yet someone has ended her life with the precision of a serpent. Tell me, what troubles did little Lady Evelyn carry beneath her elegance?" His mustache twitched, a signal of his mind's relentless churn. Reginald sank into an armchair, his broad frame seeming to shrink. "Evelyn was beloved," he insisted, his voice hoarse. "She was the heart of this house, of society itself. Who would wish her harm?" Yet his eyes darted to the fire, avoiding Poirot's gaze. The detective noted this, as he noted the ledger half hidden beneath a stack of papers on the desk. A quick glance, permitted by Reginald's distraction, revealed column sheet,
guarded by a trembling footman. The cyanide's bitter almond scent lingered in his memory, as did the missing diamond brooch. Its absence was no mere theft, he suspected. It was a piece of the puzzle, a thread in a tapestry of deceit. The cryptic note, "The mask hides all," suggested a killer who reveled in their own cleverness, or perhaps one who feared exposure. But exposure of what? Greed, betrayal, or a deeper wound? Poirot left Reginald to his brandy and sought Clara Vane, finding her in the drawing-room, her peacock mask dangling from her fingers like a trophy. Her sapphire gown shimmered, but her smile was a blade, sharp and cold. "Monsieur Poirot," she purred, "how dreadful this all is. Poor Evelyn." Her words dripped sympathy, but her eyes held a glint of triumph. Poirot recalled the whispers of her rivalry with Evelyn, a public slight at last season's gala, when Evelyn had mocked Clara's ambitions before London's elite. A woman scorned, Poirot thought, is a dangerous creature. "Madame Vane," he said, bowing slightly, "you were not with Lady Evelyn this evening, yet your pearl was found near her body. How do you explain this?" Clara's smile faltered, but she recovered swiftly. "A pearl? Surely a coincidence. I was in the powder room when the scream came. Ask anyone." Her alibi was flimsy, and Poirot noted the torn hem of her gown, a detail that spoke of haste through underbrush or a struggle. "The powder room," he repeated, "is far from the conservatory, yet your pearl was not." Clara's laugh was brittle. "You suspect me, monsieur. I had no reason to harm Evelyn. We were friends, despite our differences." Poirot's mind catalogued her lies. The pearl, matched to her mask, placed her at the scene, and her rivalry was no secret. But was envy enough for murder? He pressed further, probing her movements, her words laced with charm but no substance. As he left her, he caught a flicker of fear in her eyes, a crack in her polished facade. Next, Poirot sought Dr. Richard Mortimer, who stood by the ballroom's French doors, staring at the conservatory tonight. Did you see anything unusual? Beatrice's eyes widened, and she dropped a spoon, the clatter echoing. I was fetching wine, sir," she stammered. "I didn't see nothing." Her fear was palpable, and Poirot wondered what Evelyn might have known to make the girl so afraid. Had Beatrice witnessed something, or was she hiding her own guilt? Victor Crane was the last to face Poirot's scrutiny. The business rival stood by the ballroom's edge, his hawk mask now a prop in his hand. His boldness in attending the ball, given his history with the Ashbournes, intrigued Poirot. Years ago, Evelyn had jilted Crane for Reginald, costing him a lucrative merger. "Monsieur Crane," Poirot said, "your presence here is curious. Old wounds, they do not always heal, no?" Crane's smile was thin. "I'm here for business, Poirot, not revenge. I was in the ballroom all night, asked my partners." His alibi was the strongest, backed by multiple witnesses. Yet Poirot sensed orchestration in its perfection.
As Poirot returned to the conservatory, a new clue emerged. A footman, emboldened by the detective's presence, reported finding a vial in the garden, its label marked with the insignia of Mortimer's clinic. Poirot examined it, noting traces of cyanide within. "Doctor," he called, holding the vial aloft, "explain this." Mortimer paled, his calm fracturing. "It must have been stolen," he insisted. "I keep no such poison in my office." Poirot's mind whirred. Was the vial a red herring, planted to mislead, or damning evidence of Mortimer's guilt? The detective's thoughts returned to the brooch. Its value was immense, insured for a fortune, yet its theft seemed too obvious a motive. A jeweler's receipt, found in Evelyn's purse, revealed her plan to sell it, a secret that might have provoked someone close to her. Reginald's debts, Clara's envy, Mortimer's access, Beatrice's fear, Crane's grudge. Each suspect was a thread in a web of motives. But which led to murder? Poirot paced the conservatory, the moonlight casting long shadows through the glass. Grew restless. Whispers of curses and spectral vengeance filled the air. But Poirot dismissed them. "The human heart," he murmured, "is the true labyrinth." The pearl, the vial, the note, the missing brooch, these were not random. They were deliberate, placed to obscure or reveal. The killer, he knew, was watching, their mask still in place, their motive buried in the shadows of motive. Chapter 3. The Alibis Crack. The drawing room of Ashbourne Manor was a study in contrasts. Opulent velvet drapes and gilded mirrors clashed with the pall of suspicion that hung over its occupants. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his diminutive frame commanding the space as he faced the 5 principal suspects in Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's murder. The chandeliers above cast flickering shadows, mirroring the unease that rippled through Lord Reginald Ashbourne, Clara Vane, Dr. Richard Mortimer, Beatrice Lyle, and Victor Crane. Each wore their guilt or innocence like a mask, and Poirot's little grey cells were poised to peel them away. Outside, the 1920s London night pressed against the windows, the distant hum of the city muffled by the manor's thick walls. The midnight ball, only hours ago a whirl of laughter and music, now felt like a distant dream, replaced by the grim reality of Evelyn's poisoned body in the conservatory. The cyanide's bitter almond scent lingered in Poirot's memory, as did the missing diamond brooch and the cryptic note, "The mask hides all." The vial found in the garden, bearing Dr. Mortimer's clinic insignia, had sharpened his focus. But he knew the truth lay in the interplay of alibis and motives. "Monsieur et Mesdames," Poirot began, his voice cutting through the tense silence, "a crime most foul has been committed, and the murderer stands among us. Your movements this evening, they must be accounted for. Let us begin." His eyes, sharp behind his simple black domino mask, scanned each face, noting every flinch, every averted glance. Lord Reginald Ashbourne stood by the fireplace, his broad shoulders slumped, his lion mask long discarded. "Monsieur Ashbourne," Poirot said, "you claim you were dancing with guests when your wife met her end. Your mask was found near Madame Evelyn's body. Explain this, s'il vous plaît." Clara's smile was a practiced weapon, but it wavered. "A pearl can fall anywhere," she said airily. "I was reapplying my lipstick, as any lady might. Ask the attendants." Yet no attendant could confirm her story, and Poirot's gaze lingered on her torn hem, a silent accusation of haste through the conservatory's foliage. Her rivalry with Evelyn, born of a public humiliation at last season's gala, was motive enough. But was it all? Dr. Mortimer stood near a bookcase, his silver mask gone, his clinical calm fraying at the edges. "Doctor," Poirot said, holding up the cyanide vial, "this bears your clinic's mark. You claim it was stolen, but your access to such a poison is undeniable. And your alibi, tending a guest's sprained ankle, rests on a witness
too drunk to be trusted. Mortimer's jaw tightened, a faint tick betraying his nerves. "I told you, Poirot, I was with Lord Harrowby. He twisted his ankle during a waltz. As for the vial, anyone could have taken it from my bag." His voice was steady, but his hands betrayed him, folding and unfolding a handkerchief. Poirot wondered, was Mortimer's composure a shield or a mask for guilt? Beatrice Lyle, the maid, hovered near the door, her plain black mask clutched like a talisman. Her hands trembled as she met Poirot's gaze. "Mademoiselle Lyle," he said gently, "you are fetching wine from the cellar, you say. Yet the cellar log shows no entry at that hour. What kept you so close to the conservatory?" Beatrice's eyes widened, her breath catching. I was there, sir, but I didn't see nothing, I swear it." Her fear was palpable, and Poirot sensed a secret Evelyn might have held over her. Was Beatrice a witness, a pawn, or something more? Victor Crane leaned against a wall, his hawk mask dangling from his fingers, his smug confidence unshaken. "Monsieur Crane," Poirot said, "your alibi is the strongest, too strong, perhaps. Witnesses place you in the ballroom, surrounded by business associates."
Small cloth, revealing a second vial, identical to the first, its label also marked with Mortimer's insignia. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Doctor, another vial? Your clinic seems most careless." Mortimer's composure cracked, his voice rising. "I told you they were stolen. Someone is framing me." Poirot tucked the vial away, his mind racing. Was this evidence of Mortimer's guilt, or a deliberate plant to mislead? The killer, he knew, was weaving a web of red herrings, and he must tread carefully to avoid entanglement. Poirot returned to the conservatory, where Evelyn's body lay under a sheet, the air heavy with the scent of tropical blooms and poison. The scuff mark on the floor, the shattered flute, the missing brooch, all were clues, but none so tantalizing as the note. "The mask hides all," he murmured, turning the paper in his gloved hands. Its elegant script suggested education, perhaps a woman's hand, but it could be a forgery. Was it Clara, masking her envy? Reginald, hiding his financial desperation? Or another unseen player? The detective's thoughts turned to the maid's whisper of an argument overheard before the ball. Evelyn had quarrelled with a man, his voice low and urgent, speaking of debts repaid. Was it Reginald, pressed by his creditors? Crane, seeking revenge for past slights? Or Mortimer, whose medical knowledge made him the perfect instrument of death? The man's identity was a shadow, but Poirot felt its weight in the puzzle. He questioned the footman again, pressing for details of the garden's discovery. The vial had been half buried near a rosebush, as if discarded in haste. Its placement suggested the killer had fled the conservatory, perhaps after the scream. But why leave such damning evidence? Poirot's mind circled the possibility of a frame, a deliberate act to point suspicion at Mortimer. Yet the doctor's nervous tic and access to cyanide kept him in the frame. Poirot's gaze fell on Clara's torn hem, a detail that gnawed at him. The conservatory's ferns were dense, their fronds sharp enough to snag fabric. Had Clara slipped in to deliver the poison, her vengeance growing louder? He dismissed such talk, focusing on the human heart. The cyanide required premeditation, the brooch suggested greed or diversion, and the note hinted at a personal betrayal. The killer was among them, watching, their mask still in place. Poirot returned to the drawing room, his eyes sweeping the suspects. Reginald's grief seemed hollow, Clara's charm brittle, Mortimer's calm fraying, Beatrice's fear raw, Crane's confidence too perfect. The vials, the pearl, the note, they were pieces of a puzzle, but the picture remained elusive. The detective's mind churned, seeking the thread that would unravel the truth. Chapter 4. The Hidden Past. The air in Ashbourne Manor grew heavy with suspicion, the grandeur of its halls now a gilded cage for its occupants. Hercule Poirot stood in the conservatory, where the moonlight filtered through glass panes, casting eerie shadows among the ferns and orchids. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's body, still under its sheet, was a silent accusation, urging Poirot's little grey cells to unravel the tangle of motives and clues. The cyanide vial, the missing diamond brooch, the cryptic note, the mask hides all, and now a stained leather glove found near the conservatory door wove a web of intrigue. Each suspect, Lord Reginald Ashbourne, Clara Vane, Dr. Richard Mortimer, Beatrice Lyle, and Victor Crane, wore their secrets like the masks of the midnight ball, and Poirot was determined to strip them bare. The detective's mind churned over the latest clue, the glove, its leather supple but marred by a dark stain that smelled faintly of chemicals. Was it cyanide? Or another red herring? The glove's size suggested a man's hand, but Poirot knew appearances could deceive. He recalled the maid's whisper of an argument between Evelyn and an unknown man before the ball, speaking of debts repaid. The glove might belong to this shadow, but which of his suspects fit the role? Reginald, with his mounting debts? Victor, nursing an old grudge? Or Mortimer, whose medical expertise made him a prime candidate for poison? Poirot began his inquiries anew, seeking the whim to desperation. Leaving Reginald, Poirot sought Clara Vane in the rose garden, where she paced beneath the stars, her peacock mask discarded. Her sapphire gown was pristine, save for the torn hem that betrayed her presence near the conservatory. "Madame," Poirot said, "your rivalry with Evelyn was no secret. A slight at last season's gala, a wound to your pride, such things can fester into murder." Clara's laugh was sharp, like breaking glass. "You think I'd kill for a petty insult?" Evelyn and I had buried our differences, yet her fingers toyed nervously with a sapphire bracelet, and Poirot recalled the pearl from her mask found near Evelyn's body. "The evidence," he said, "suggests otherwise. Your pearl, your torn gown, why were you in the conservatory?" Clara's eyes flashed. "I wasn't there. Someone must have taken my pearl to frame me." Her denial was fierce, but Poirot sensed a lie beneath her polish. Dr. Mortimer was next, found in the manor's small infirmary, organizing his medical bag with meticulous care. The second cyanide vial, identical to the first, weighed heavily on Poirot's mind. "Doctor," he said, holding up the glove, "this was found near the crime. A man's glove, stained with a chemical scent. Your clinic's vials suggest carelessness or guilt." Mortimer's calm faltered, his tic more pronounced. "I told you, Poirot, my supplies were stolen. As for the glove, it's not mine. Test it for fingerprints if you must." His defiance was bold, but Poirot noted the sweat beading on his brow. Mortimer's access to poisons and knowledge of Evelyn's habits made him a compelling suspect. Yet the vial's discovery felt too convenient, as if designed to mislead. Beatrice Lyle, the maid, was in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she scrubbed pots. Poirot approached gently, sensing her fear. "Mademoiselle," he said, "you were near the conservatory, yet your alibi falters. What did Madame Evelyn know that made you tremble?" Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. "She does not heal easily." Crane's smile was cold. "I'm a businessman, Poirot, not a sentimental fool. I was here to negotiate, not to kill." Yet Poirot learned from a servant that Crane had met Evelyn privately days before, their voices raised. Was it about the merger, or something deeper? Crane's alibi, though strong, felt rehearsed, and Poirot suspected a man of his cunning could orchestrate such a facade. Returning to the conservatory, Poirot examined the scuff mark on the marble floor, its arc suggesting a brief struggle. Evelyn had been lured here, he theorized, by the note's promise or threat. The champagne flute laced with cyanide was her personal vintage, known only to those close to her. The killer had planned meticulously, using the ball's chaos as cover. The glove, found near the door, was a new piece of the puzzle. Its stain, when tested by a chemist summoned from London, confirmed traces of cyanide, but no fingerprints. Wiped clean, perhaps. The glove's size pointed to a man, but Poirot considered Clara, whose ambition might have led her to borrow such a disguise. The detective's thoughts turned to Evelyn's past, seeking the root of her death. A guest, loosened by wine, revealed a scandal. Years ago, Evelyn had broken her engagement to Victor Crane for Reginald, a move that cost Crane a fortune and his pride. The merger's collapse had left him bitter, a motive that lingered like poison. Yet Reginald's debts, tied to failed ventures with Crane, suggested a shared history of betrayal. Had Evelyn uncovered something that threatened them both? The burned letter, mentioned by Beatrice, hinted at a secret Evelyn feared, perhaps linked to the debts repaid overheard in her argument. Poirot questioned a footman who had served the champagne. The man recalled delivering a tray to the conservatory, at Evelyn's request, but swore he saw no one else. Yet the flute's poison required access, and only someone intimate with Evelyn's habits would know her preference. Clara's torn hem gnawed at Poirot. The conservatory's ferns could snag fabric, and her pearl placed her at the scene. "Madame," he confronted her again, "your gown betrays you. The tear, the pearl. You were there." Clara's face paled, but she held firm. "I was not, Poirot." Poirot paced the conservatory. A groundskeeper approached, his face grim. "Monsieur, I saw something after the scream. A masked figure running from the estate, carrying a small case. It glinted, like metal or jewels." Poirot's eyes gleamed. The brooch, perhaps, or the tool of murder. The figure's flight suggested panic, but the case hinted at purpose. Was it stolen wealth, or evidence hidden from his grasp? The detective's mind raced, weaving connections. The glove pointed to a man, but Clara's ambition could stretch to such a ruse. The vials implicated Mortimer, but their discovery felt staged. Beatrice's confession revealed vulnerability, but not murder. Reginald's debts and Crane's grudge were potent motives, yet neither's alibi had fully cracked. The note, "The mask hides all," was a taunt, a clue to the killer's arrogance, or Evelyn's fear. Chapter 5. The False Trail. The dawn light filtered weakly through the stained-glass windows of Ashbourne Manor, casting fractured colours across the Persian rugs like spilled blood. Hercule Poirot had not slept. His little grey cells demanded vigilance, churning through the labyrinth of clues that surrounded Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's murder. The conservatory, where her body lay awaiting the coroner, was sealed, but its shadows haunted him. The poisoned champagne flute, the missing diamond brooch, the cryptic note, "The mask hides all," the stained leather glove with its faint perfume trace, and now the groundskeeper's report of a fleeing masked figure with a glinting case. Each element was a breadcrumb on a false trail, Poirot suspected, laid by a killer cunning enough to anticipate his every step. The detective stood in the library, surrounded by the ghosts of Evelyn's past, his moustache impeccably waxed despite the night's toll. The glove's perfume, matching Clara Vane's signature scent, was a tantalizing lead. But Poirot knew better than to rush to judgment. Red herrings were the murderer's ally, and he must die.
Madame Clara. She's been asking questions about poisons, saying it was for a headache powder. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Clara again, her perfume on the glove, her pearl at the scene. The detective's thoughts turned to the brooch. A discreet inquiry to Evelyn's jeweler confirmed its immense value, but also a recent appraisal. Evelyn planned to sell it to cover Reginald's debts. Had this decision sealed her fate? Reginald, with his failing ventures, stood to gain from her death, inheriting without the sale's stigma. Poirot confronted him in the study, where the lord nursed a headache with aspirin. "Monsieur Ashbourne," Poirot said, "your wife intended to sell her brooch. This would expose your financial woes, no? A motive for silence." Reginald's face paled. "She was helping me," he protested. "I didn't know about the sale until yesterday. We argued, yes, but I'd never harm her." His grief seemed genuine, but Poirot noted his evasive eyes. The burned letter Beatrice mentioned. Perhaps it detailed the sale, destroyed to hide evidence. Clara Vane was next, summoned to the drawing room where sunlight pierced the gloom. Her sapphire gown was changed for a morning dress, but her composure was frayed. "Madame," Poirot said, presenting the glove, "this bears your perfume. You were in the conservatory, delivering death?" Clara's laugh was brittle. "Absurd! My perfume is common among society ladies. Someone stole the glove from my room to frame me." Yet her torn hem and the pearl gnawed at Poirot. He pressed her on the vial Beatrice mentioned. "Headache powder or poison for a rival?" Clara's eyes flashed. "I asked about remedies. Nothing more. Evelyn and I had reconciled." But Poirot uncovered a guest's recollection. Evelyn had snubbed Clara again, whispering of a stolen opportunity at the ball's start. Ambition, envy, Clara's motives burned bright. Dr. Mortimer, in the infirmary, examined the glove with clinical detachment. "The stain is cyanide residue," he confirmed, "but the perfume, not mine." Poirot watched his tic intensify. "Doctor,
Crane's recent threat. If Evelyn didn't sell her shares, he'd expose Reginald's embezzlement. The merger's old wound festered, and Crane's presence at the ball was no coincidence. As Poirot delved deeper, a new clue emerged. Searching Evelyn's rooms, he found a hidden drawer with a second note scrawled in haste. "Meet me at midnight, or all is lost." The handwriting matched the first note, suggesting the killer lured her to the conservatory. But whose hand wrote it? A forgery expert, hastily consulted, noted feminine flourishes, Clara's style or Beatrice's under duress. The note's desperation hinted at blackmail, tying to the burned letters debts repaid. The detective reconstructed the timeline. Evelyn received the note, slipped away during the waltz, and drank the poisoned champagne. The killer knew her habits, her vintage preference, her trust in the sender. The scuff mark indicated a brief struggle, perhaps as she realized the betrayal. The glove, with its perfume, pointed to Clara, but Poirot wondered if it was stolen, like the vials. Beatrice's fingerprints were damning, but her confession rang of innocence manipulated. A servant interrupted, bearing a tray of tea. "Monsieur, I found this in the garden, a button, pearl-like, matching Miss Vane's gown." Poirot examined it. Another thread linking Clara. Yet the false trail thickened. Too many clues pointed one way, a classic misdirection. Reginald's debts, Crane's grudge, Mortimer's poisons, all converged, but Clara's ambitions seemed the sharpest blade. Poirot gathered the suspects briefly, watching reactions. Reginald avoided Clara's gaze. Mortimer eyed the glove warily. Beatrice trembled. Crane smiled smugly.
The killer was among them, weaving lies. The brooch's absence suggested theft as diversion, but its sale plan pointed to financial motives. Evelyn's diary, discovered hidden, mentioned a betrayal by a friend, fueling Clara's suspect status. The manor buzzed with tension, guests whispering of Poirot's prowess. He dismissed superstitions, focusing on logic. The fleeing figure with the case, perhaps the brooch, hidden to retrieve later, or evidence destroyed.
Frame, clad in an immaculate suit despite the night's exertions, moved with purposeful energy through the library. Bookshelves lined with forgotten tomes on history and horticulture loomed like silent sentinels, but Poirot's mind was far from literary pursuits. His little gray cells were ablaze, dissecting the web of deception that enshrouded Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's murder. The poisoned champagne, the vanished diamond brooch, the enigmatic note, the mask hides all. The stained glove with its telltale perfume, the cyanide vials, and now the shattered window in Evelyn's room, with its raven feather and smeared footprint. Each clue seemed a breadcrumb, yet Poirot sensed the trail was false, a deliberate labyrinth crafted by a killer who anticipated his every deduction. The conservatory, sealed and guarded, lingered in his thoughts like a specter. Evelyn's body, rigid in death, accused from beyond the grave. The cyanide's bitter almond aroma had dissipated, but its implications had not. Poirot pondered the glove's perfume, a match for Clara Vane's signature scent. Jasmine and rose, subtle yet distinctive. Was it damning evidence, or another layer of misdirection? The vials, both traced to Dr. Mortimer's clinic, and Beatrice Lyle's fingerprints on one, added to the chaos. Red herrings, he mused, were the murderer's stock in trade, designed to scatter suspicion like confetti at the midnight ball. He began the morning's interrogations with Beatrice Lyle, summoning her to the library, where the fire crackled softly, warding off the autumn chill. The young maid entered hesitantly, her apron askew, her eyes swollen from tears and sleeplessness. She clutched her hands together, knuckles white, as if to steady herself against Poirot's piercing gaze. "Mademoiselle Lyle," Poirot said, his voice a blend of compassion and steel, gesturing to a chair opposite his. "We must speak of the vial again. Your fingerprints upon it. They place you at the heart of this poison. Yet you claim innocence. Tell me, how did it come to be in your grasp?" He held up the vial in a gloved hand, its glass gleaming ominously in the firelight. Beatrice sank into the seat, her lower lip trembling. "Oh, Monsieur Poirot, I swear on my mother's grave."
Balance. Yours, perhaps. Beatrice hesitated, glancing toward the door, as if expecting interruption.
"It was Madame Clara, sir. She came to the quarters yesterday, asking about headache powders and such. Said she had a migraine from the ball preparations. But her eyes, they were shifty, like she was probing for something more. And her perfume, it lingers, you know? Jasmine, strong as sin."
Poirot nodded inwardly. The connection to the glove was strengthening, but he must not leap. Clara's ambition was evident, her rivalry with Evelyn a festering wound, but planting evidence required nerve and opportunity. "Thank you, mademoiselle," Poirot said, dismissing her with a kind wave. "You have been most helpful. Remember, the truth will protect the innocent." As she fled, he turned to his notes, jotting the detail. Beatrice's fear stemmed from her petty theft, confessed earlier, but now it seemed tied to larger forces. Had Clara used her as a scapegoat, knowing Evelyn's threat of dismissal would silence her? The detective's next quarry was Lord Reginald Ashbourne, found in his study amid stacks of unpaid bills and ledgers that screamed of desperation. Reginald looked up from his desk, his face gaunt in the morning light, shadows etching deeper lines around his eyes. The lion mask from the ball lay discarded on a side table, a relic of lost grandeur. "Monsieur Ashbourne," Poirot began, closing the door softly behind him. "The brooch, your wife's heirloom, intended for sale. This would have exposed your financial straits to the world, no? A public humiliation,
perhaps motive enough for a desperate man. He paced slowly, his cane tapping rhythmically on the rug, building tension like a gathering storm. Reginald's hand tightened on a fountain pen, ink blotting the page. Evelyn was my salvation, Poirot. Her fortune kept us afloat, yes, but I loved her beyond measure. The sale. It was her idea, to bail me out of Crane's latest scheme. We argued heatedly yesterday. She burned the appraisal letter in the grate, saying it was too risky. But murder? Never. His voice cracked, genuine sorrow mingling with defensiveness.
Cup. Her movements graceful but guarded. The torn hem from her ball gown had been mended hastily, but Poirot's eye missed nothing. Madame Vane, he said, bowing slightly before taking a seat. The glove bears your perfume, the pearl your mask, the button your gown. And now Beatrice accuses you of inquiring about poisons. The trail leads inexorably to you. Why deny what the evidence proclaims? His tone was accusatory, yet probing, inviting confession or slip. Clara set down her cup with a clink, her smile a fragile mask. Monsieur Poirot, you weave a fine tale, but it's fiction. My perfume is worn by half of London society. Ask any modiste. The glove could be anyone's, stolen from my wardrobe as I slept. As for Beatrice, the girl is a thief and a liar. She'd say anything to save her skin. Evelyn and I had our differences. A stolen opportunity, yes. She blocked my entry into a charitable board last month. But murder? Preposterous. Her voice held steady, but her fingers drummed the armrest, a tell of inner turmoil. Poirot recalled the guest's whisper, Evelyn's slight at the ball, calling Clara a social climber without merit. Envy could poison deeper than cyanide. And the note? Poirot pressed. Luring her to death. Your handwriting matches the flourishes. Clara laughed, though it sounded forced. Forgeries abound in society, monsieur. Someone frames me because I'm convenient, a rival without an alibi. Poirot conceded inwardly. The evidence piled too neatly. A false trail indeed. Dr. Richard Mortimer was in the infirmary, bandaging a minor cut on a servant's hand, his movements precise and clinical. The silver mask was gone, but his face retained its composed facade, though the tick at his jaw pulsed more frequently. Doctor, Poirot said, entering unannounced, your vials proliferate like rabbits. Stolen, you say? Yet Beatrice links Clara to poisons via you. Were you accomplices? Or is this another diversion? He placed the glove on the table, watching Mortimer's reaction. The physician's eyes flicked to it, then away. I've told you, Poirot, my stores were breached. I supplied Evelyn with sedatives for her nerves, nothing more. Clara did consult me. This is business, not vendetta. Yet his smugness irked Poirot. Old grudges died hard. As the morning waned, Poirot sifted ashes from Evelyn's grate, finding a fragment. Debts repaid in blood if necessary. The burned letter tied to the argument overheard. The shattered window suggested an intruder or insider seeking the diary or note. The suspect's motives intertwined. Reginald's desperation, Clara's envy, Mortimer's access, Beatrice's fear, Crane's revenge. The false trail pointed to Clara, but Poirot sensed deeper waters. Chapter 6. The mask slips. The pale light of late morning seeped through the conservatory's glass walls, illuminating the tropical fronds that framed Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's shrouded body. Hercule Poirot stood motionless, his sharp eyes tracing the scene of her murder. The shattered champagne flute, its cyanide-laced contents long evaporated. The scuff mark on the marble floor, the missing diamond brooch, and the cryptic note, "The mask hides all." The latest clues, a stained leather glove redolent of Clara Vane's perfume, a locket with a photograph of Evelyn and an unknown man, and a raven feather from a shattered window in her room, tightened the web of deception. Poirot's little grey cells churned relentlessly, sensing the killer's mask was beginning to slip, though the truth remained tantalizingly out of reach.
Ashbourne Manor, once a beacon of 1920s opulence, now felt like a mausoleum, its guests trapped by Poirot's decree and the weight of their secrets. The locket, found in a hidden compartment in a planter, was a new enigma. The photograph showed Evelyn, younger and radiant, beside a man whose face was unfamiliar, neither Reginald, Victor Crane, nor Dr. Mortimer. Was this the man from the overheard argument, speaking of debts repaid? The raven feather suggested a costume from the midnight ball, but whose? Poirot's mind wove connections. The glove pointed to Clara, the vials to Mortimer, Beatrice's fear to manipulation, Reginald's debts to desperation, and Crane's grudge to old wounds. The killer had orchestrated a symphony of misdirection.
Truths.
He held up the locket, watching for reactions. Reginald flinched. Clara's eyes narrowed. Mortimer's tick pulsed. Beatrice gasped softly, and Crane's smirk faltered briefly. The locket held a key, but to whose heart? Poirot started with Reginald, summoning him to the library for privacy. The Lord's hands shook as he poured brandy, though the hour was early. "Monsieur Ashbourne," Poirot said, "this locket, Evelyn with another man. Who was he, and why did she hide this memory?" Reginald's face darkened. "I don't know him," he said too quickly. "Evelyn had admirers before me, but that's past. She loved me." Yet his voice wavered, and Poirot recalled the burned letters fragment. Debts repaid in blood. Had Evelyn's past entangled Reginald's present? "Your debts," Poirot pressed, "relied on her fortune. Her plan to sell the brooch threatened your pride. Did you lure her to the conservatory with that note?" Reginald slammed his glass down. "I wrote no note. I'd have died for her." His passion was convincing, but Poirot noted his evasion. Clara Vane was next, found in the rose garden, her composure a fragile veneer. The glove's perfume haunted Poirot, as did the button matching her gown. "Madame," he said, presenting the locket, "Evelyn's secrets point to betrayal. Your rivalry, her slights. Did you poison her to silence a rival?" Clara's laugh was sharp, her eyes cold. "You're obsessed with me, Poirot. That glove was stolen, the button planted. As for the locket, I knew nothing of Evelyn's old flames." Yet her fingers toyed with her bracelet, a nervous tell. Poirot mentioned the note, "Meet me at midnight or all is lost," and watched her pale. "I wrote no such thing," she insisted. "Someone mimics my hand to frame me." Her denial was fierce, but the perfume, pearl, and button wove a damning thread. Dr. Mortimer, in the infirmary, examined the locket with
See his face, but he wore a dark cloak, like the raven masks. She looked scared, said something about no more secrets. "I didn't kill her, sir, but she knew about my stealing, threatened to tell." Poirot soothed her, sensing truth. Beatrice was no murderer, but her knowledge made her a target. Had the killer used her to plant the vial? Victor Crane, in the ballroom, exuded confidence, his business associates still vouching for his presence during the murder. "Monsieur Crane," Poirot said, "this locket, Evelyn's past, cost you a merger. Did you confront her, demand her silence?" Crane's smile was icy. "I moved on, Poirot. My alibi is ironclad. That locket means nothing to me." Yet Poirot uncovered a witness who saw Crane near the conservatory earlier, contradicting his story slightly. The old grudge, tied to the jilted engagement, lingered like poison. To test his suspicions, Poirot devised a trap. He gathered the suspects in the drawing room, placing a replica of the diamond brooch on a table, claiming it was found. "Observe, mes amis," he said, "the brooch returns. Handle it, if you please." Reginald touched it briefly, his face impassive. Clara's fingers lingered, her eyes gleaming with recognition before she masked it. Mortimer examined it clinically. Beatrice avoided it, and Crane barely glanced. Clara's reaction confirmed Poirot's suspicion. She knew the brooch's significance, perhaps its hiding place. The detective reconstructed the murder. Evelyn received the note, slipped into the conservatory during the waltz, and drank the poisoned champagne, her favorite vintage. The scuff mark suggested a struggle, brief but desperate. The glove, button, and pearl pointed to Clara, but the vials implicated Mortimer. Beatrice's fingerprints and fear suggested manipulation, while Reginald's debts and Crane's grudge loomed large. The locket hinted at a past lover, perhaps the argued man. But who? Poirot returned to Evelyn's room, examining the shattered window. The raven feather matched a servant's costume, but guests had access to spares. The footprint, small and narrow, suggested a woman, or a man with
sensed a deeper game. The killer used Beatrice's fear, Mortimer's vials, and Clara's perfume to muddy the truth. The manor's tension was palpable, guests whispering of Poirot's relentless pursuit. He dismissed their talk of curses, focusing on logic. The locket's man, the note's writer, the glove's owner, these were keys to a locked truth. The fleeing figure with the case, seen by the groundskeeper, suggested the brooch was hidden, not stolen. As Poirot paced the conservatory, the perfume on the glove lingered, a jasmine taunt. Clara's ambition, Reginald's desperation, Mortimer's access, Beatrice's manipulation, Crane's grudge. The threads converged, but the pattern eluded him. The killer watched, their mask slipping, but not yet fallen. Chapter 7. The Web Tightens. The midday sun struggled through the heavy clouds over Ashbourne Manor, casting a pallid glow across its ornate halls. Hercule Poirot stood in the conservatory, where the scent of tropical blooms mingled with the lingering memory of cyanide. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's body, now removed by the coroner, left an echo of violence in the shattered champagne flute, the scuff mark on the marble, and the absent diamond brooch. The clues amassed, the cryptic note reading, "The mask hides all," the stained leather glove with Clara Vane's perfume, the locket with Evelyn and an unknown man, the raven feather, and the masquerade mask laced with cyanide traces formed a puzzle of deception. Poirot's little grey cells hummed, sensing the killer's mask was fraying, the web of their lies tightening with each revelation. The manor, once alive with the midnight ball's revelry, was now a prison of suspicion, its 1920s opulence tarnished by murder. The latest discovery, the cyanide-tainted masquerade mask found in the shrubbery, pointed sharply at Clara Vane, its jasmine scent matching her perfume. Yet Poirot, ever wary of red herrings, suspected the evidence was too neatly aligned. Beatrice Lyle's confession of his intellect. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice a scalpel slicing through tension. "The murderer's web tightens. A mask, stained with cyanide and perfume, joins the glove, the vials, the locket. Each clue points, yet misleads. Let us unravel these threads." He held up the masquerade mask, its black silk and feather trim glinting ominously. Clara's face paled, but she said nothing, her silence louder than words. Poirot turned to Reginald first, summoning him to the library for a private interrogation. The lord's hands trembled as he clutched a cigarette, its smoke curling like a question mark. "Monsieur Ashbourne,"
Poirot said. Your debts are a noose, and Evelyn's death loosens it. The locket. Did it reveal a rival? A secret you silenced? Reginald exhaled sharply. I told you, Poirot, I don't know that man. Evelyn's past was hers alone. My debts? Yes, they crushed us. But I'd never harm her. His voice broke. But Poirot noted a ledger entry glimpsed earlier, showing a recent loan from Victor Crane, tied to Evelyn's shares. Had Reginald lured her to the conservatory to secure his fortune? The note, Poirot pressed. Meet me at midnight. Your hand, perhaps? Reginald shook his head, his eyes avoiding the detective's. I wrote nothing. I was in the ballroom, lost in the crowd. His alibi, as ever, was vague, fraying under Poirot's scrutiny. Clara Vane awaited in the rose garden, her composure a brittle facade. The masquerade mask lay on a bench, its cyanide traces damning. Madame, Poirot said, your perfume clings to this mask, as it did the glove. Beatrice accuses you of planting the vial. Your ambition, your envy, did they drive you to murder? Clara's laugh was a jagged edge. You build a castle of lies, Poirot. My perfume is common, the mask stolen. Beatrice is a thief, desperate to shift blame. I was in the powder room, not the conservatory. Yet the button, the pearl, the torn hem confide in you. Mortimer shook his head. She was my patient, nothing more. His denial was firm, but his hands betrayed him, clenching the mask too tightly. Beatrice Lyle in the kitchen was a trembling wreck. Mademoiselle, Poirot said gently, showing the raven feather. This matches your costume, yet you deny involvement. Clara coerced you, oui? What else do you know? Beatrice sobbed, collapsing onto a stool. She threatened me, sir. Said she'd tell about my stealing if I didn't plant the vial. But the mask, I saw it in her room, hidden under her shawl before the ball. Poirot's pulse quickened. Clara's room, another link. Beatrice's fear made her a tool, not a killer, but her knowledge endangered her. The locket's man, he asked. Did you see him? Beatrice nodded faintly. Once in the garden, with her ladyship. He looked like Monsieur Crane, but I couldn't swear it. The revelation was a spark in Poirot's mind, igniting new connections. Victor Crane in the ballroom exuded smug confidence, his associates still vouching for his alibi. Monsieur Crane, Poirot said, Beatrice places you with Evelyn, perhaps the locket's man. Your grudge, her shares. Did you lure her to death? Crane's smirk didn't waver. The maid's delusional, Poirot. My alibi holds. Dozens saw me dancing. Evelyn's past means nothing to me now. Yet Poirot uncovered a servant's account. Crane had slipped away briefly, claiming a cigar break near the conservatory's entrance. His grudge, tied to the jilted merger, was a potent motive, but his alibi remained frustratingly solid. Poirot's trap deepened. He summoned a footman who had served the champagne, pressing for details. The man recalled a guest, masked and cloaked, requesting a specific flute for Evelyn, delivered to the conservatory. The description, slender, feminine, pointed to Clara, but the cloak suggested disguise. Poirot staged a second test, asking each suspect to identify Evelyn's diary, left open to a page about betrayal. Clara hesitated, her fingers grazing the page as if recognizing it. Reginald flinched. Mortimer scanned it clinically. Beatrice avoided it, and Crane glanced dismissively. Explain. Reginald stammered. I stepped out for air, nothing more. I didn't see Evelyn. His lie was palpable, and Poirot's suspicion deepened. The diary's betrayal entry mentioned a close heart, hinting at Reginald or Clara. The Manor's guests, confined and restless, whispered of Poirot's relentlessness, some fearing a curse. He dismissed such nonsense, focusing on logic. The cyanide mask, the glove's perfume, the locket's man, all converged on a truth obscured by false trails. The fleeing figure with the case suggested the brooch was hidden, not stolen, perhaps to retrieve later. As Poirot paced the conservatory, a servant rushed in, breathless. "Monsieur, a discovery in the master's study. A hidden drawer with the diamond brooch." Poirot's eyes gleamed. The brooch, concealed by Reginald, shifted the lens. Had he staged the theft to claim insurance? Or was it another misdirection? Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The early afternoon light filtered through the heavy drapes of Ashbourne Manor's grand ballroom, casting long shadows across the polished oak floor where the midnight ball had spun its illusions only hours ago. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his compact frame a quiet force amid the gathered suspects, whose faces bore the strain of sleeplessness and fear. The air was thick with tension. The opulence of the 1920s estate, now a gilded trap for Lord Reginald Ashbourne, Clara Vane, Dr. Richard Mortimer, Beatrice Lyle, and Victor Crane. Lady Evelyn Ashbourne's murder, her poisoned champagne, the missing, then found, diamond brooch with its cyanide-scented compartment, the cryptic note, "The mask hides all," the perfumed glove, the locket with an unknown man, and the cyanide-tainted masquerade mask had woven a web of deceit that Poirot's little gray cells were poised to unravel. The brooch, discovered in Reginald's hidden drawer, was the latest blow. Its secret compartment a chilling clue. The killer's mask was cracking, and Poirot was ready to tear it away. He had summoned the
He held up the brooch, its facets catching the light, and watched the suspect's reactions. Reginald's flinch, Clara's narrowed eyes, Mortimer's tick, Beatrice's gasp, Crane's smirk. The web was tightening, and Poirot sensed the killer's desperation. He turned to Reginald first, his cane tapping rhythmically as he approached. "Monsieur Ashbourne, the brooch in your study, hidden, not stolen. You claimed insurance, oui? A motive for murder, to secure Evelyn's fortune without her sale's shame." Reginald's face reddened, his hands clenching. "I hid it after her death, Poirot, to protect it from thieves. I didn't know about the cyanide compartment. I loved Evelyn. She was my salvation." His voice cracked, but Poirot noted the ledger's evidence. Reginald's debts, tied to Victor Crane's ventures, were crushing. The burned letters fragment, "Debts repaid in blood," echoed in Poirot's mind. "The note," he pressed, "meet me at midnight. Your hand, perhaps, luring her to death?" Reginald shook his head violently. "I wrote no note. I was near the conservatory for air, not murder." His contradiction of his earlier alibi was a crack Poirot seized. Clara Vane rose, her composure a fragile mask, the masquerade mask, glove, and button, all tied to her perfume and gown, loomed large. "Madame," Poirot said, "your scent clings to the glove, the mask, the murder. Beatrice accuses you of coercion, planting the vial. Your envy of Evelyn, her social slights, did they drive you to poison?" Clara's laugh was shrill, her eyes blazing. "You pile lies upon me, Poirot. The glove was stolen, the mask planted. Beatrice is a thief, desperate to save herself. Evelyn and I clashed, yes, but I didn't kill her." Poirot produced the diary, open to "Betrayal by a friend." "This friend, madame, was it you, sabotaged by her?" Clara's face paled. "She blocked my charity board seat, a petty slight, not worth murder." Yet her hesitation over the brooch in Poirot's trap placed the vial under Clara's orders, oui? The mask in her room. What else do you know?
Beatrice sobbed, her voice barely audible. "She threatened me, sir. Said she'd tell about my stealing. I saw the mask under her shawl, smelled her perfume on it. But I didn't poison her ladyship." Poirot believed her innocence, but sensed her knowledge made her a liability. "The locket's man," he asked. "Was it Monsieur Crane?" Beatrice nodded faintly. "I think so, sir. From the garden meeting. But it was dark." Her words reignited Crane's motive, the jilted merger, a wound unhealed. Victor Crane, unfazed, met Poirot's gaze. "Monsieur Crane," the detective said, "Evelyn's past cost you dearly. The locket suggests you were close once. Did you lure her to silence her?" Crane's smirk widened. "You chase ghosts, Poirot. My alibi is unbreakable, witnesses galore. I had no reason to kill her." Yet the servant's account of Crane's brief absence near the conservatory lingered, and his threat to expose Reginald's embezzlement added weight. Was he the locket's man, or another diversion? Poirot's trap deepened. He revealed Evelyn's diary, its final entry stark. "Reginald betrays me with another. Clara schemes, but I hold the key." The room froze. "Betrayal," Poirot said. "A motive for all. Monsieur Ashburn, an affair with Clara, perhaps, to secure her silence?" Reginald roared. "Lies! I was faithful!" Clara's face twisted in fury. "How dare you? I'd never stoop to him!" Their denials clashed, but Poirot noted their shared panic. The note, in Reginald's handwriting style, suggested he lured Evelyn, but the cyanide required medical precision, Mortimer's domain. The detective staged a final test, producing a replica note with the same script. "Who wrote this?" he demanded, passing it among them. Reginald hesitated. Clara flinched. Mortimer scanned it. Beatrice trembled. Crane ignored it. Clara's reaction again betrayed familiarity. Poirot pressed Mortimer. The brooch's compartment suggested a meticulous plan, the note, a personal betrayal. The fleeing figure with the case, perhaps hiding the brooch to retrieve later, pointed to Reginald or Crane. Clara's perfume, Mortimer's vials, Beatrice's fear, all converged. But the truth danced just out of reach. Poirot reconstructed the murder. Evelyn received the note, slipped into the conservatory, and drank the poisoned champagne, a vintage known to few. The scuff mark indicated resistance, the brooch's absence a ruse. The locket hinted at a past lover, possibly Crane, but the diary's betrayal pointed closer, Reginald or Clara. Mortimer's coerced vial was a key, but whose hand wielded it? As accusations swirled, a sudden crash echoed from outside. A window shattered in the garden. Poirot rushed out, finding a broken pane and a discarded scarf, its silk matching Clara's shawl. Had she fled, seeking evidence, or was another player moving? The scarf bore no perfume, only the faint scent of earth, suggesting haste. The detective's mind raced. Clara's ambition, Reginald's desperation, Mortimer's coercion, Beatrice's manipulation, Crane's grudge. The web was tight, but a single thread remained loose. The locket's man, the note's writer, the brooch's hider, who held the final key. The late afternoon sun cast long, mournful shadows across Ashbourne Manor, its golden rays doing little to dispel the chill of suspicion that gripped the estate. The grand ballroom, where the midnight ball had spun its web of revelry only hours ago, now stood silent, a stage for Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth. The murder of Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, her poisoned champagne, the diamond brooch with its cyanide-laced compartment, the cryptic note, the mask hides all, the perfumed glove, the locket with an unknown man, the cyanide-tainted masquerade mask, and now a silk scarf and a tiny key engraved with a C formed a mosaic of deception. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with urgency, sensing the killer's mask was nearly torn away. Yet one final clue held the key to unmasking them. The manor, a monument to 1920s opulence, was a pressure cooker of fear and secrets, flickered under scrutiny. Clara Vane, her pale gown pristine, clutched her handkerchief, her eyes sharp with calculation. Dr. Richard Mortimer stood rigid, his clinical calm shattered by a twitching jaw. Beatrice Lyle, near the door, trembled, her apron a twisted knot. Victor Crane lounged with a smirk, his hawkish gaze defiant. The air crackled with tension as Poirot raised the tiny key, its glint a silent accusation. "Mesdames et messieurs," he declared, his voice a velvet blade, "the final clue emerges, a key marked C, found with a scarf near a shattered window. The killer's hand trembles, their mask slips. Let us end this masquerade." The suspect's reactions were telling. Reginald's eyes widened. Clara's breath caught. Mortimer's tic pulsed. Beatrice gasped. Crane's smirk faltered. The key was a lockpick to the truth, and Poirot was ready to turn it. The crash's aftermath demanded attention. Poirot summoned Beatrice to the library, her fear palpable as she entered, her eyes darting to the key in his hand. "Mademoiselle Lyle," he said gently, "you spoke of Clara's coercion, planting the vial. This key, was it hers or another's? Speak, for your safety hangs in the balance." Beatrice collapsed into a chair, sobbing. "It was Madame Clara, sir. She came to me before the ball, gave me the vial, said it was medicine for her nerves. She had a key like that, kept it in her jewelry box. I saw it when I cleaned her room. She caught me looking, threatened to tell about my stealing." Her words poured out, raw and frantic. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Clara's coercion was clear, but was she the mastermind, or a tool? He confronted Clara next, finding her in the rose garden, her composure fraying like her torn hem from the ball. "Madame Vane," Poirot said, holding up the key and scarf, "these point to you. The mask, the glove, the button, your perfume, and now Beatrice places you with the vial and this key. But I didn't kill Evelyn!" His confession deepened Clara's shadow, but Poirot recalled Mortimer's access to Evelyn's champagne preference. "The lockets man," he probed. "Was he your rival?" Mortimer shook his head. "I was her physician, nothing more." Yet his argument with Evelyn about reckless decisions lingered. Perhaps the brooch sale, or the locket's secret. Reginald in his study was a wreck, his brandy glass empty. "Monsieur Ashburn," Poirot said, "the brooch in your drawer, the note in your style. Did you lure Evelyn to save your fortune?" Reginald's voice was hoarse. "I hid the brooch to protect it, not to steal. The note wasn't mine. I loved her." Yet the diary's betrayal entry pointed to an affair, possibly with Clara. Poirot pressed. "You were seen near the conservatory, contradicting your alibi," Reginald stammered. "I was checking the grounds, not murdering." His lies were unraveling, but the key's C didn't fit him. Victor Crane, in the ballroom, exuded defiance. "Monsieur Crane," Poirot said, "the key's initial matches your name. The lockets man, your past with Evelyn cost you dearly. Did you seek revenge?" Crane's smirk was icy. "You chase shadows, Poirot. My key opens my safe, not a murder plot. My alibi holds." Yet Beatrice's tentative identification of him in the garden gnawed at Poirot. The merger's collapse, Crane's threat to expose Reginald's embezzlement, motives abounded, but evidence was thin. Poirot reconstructed the murder. Evelyn received the note, entered the conservatory, and drank the poisoned champagne. her vintage known to few. The scuff mark suggested a struggle. The brooch's compartment, the delivery method. The locket hinted at a past lover, Crane, but the diary's betrayal pointed to Clara or Reginald. The mask, glove and scarf tied to Clara's perfume, but the key's C could implicate Crane. Beatrice's coercion and Mortimer's confession painted Clara as the puppeteer. But was she the killer? A servant's interruption brought a new lead. Evelyn's maid glove. He tested the key on a small box in Clara's room, confiscated earlier. It fit, revealing a vial's residue and a torn note fragment. At midnight. The ballroom confrontation resumed, Poirot's voice commanding. Madame Vane, you lured Evelyn with the note, used the brooch's compartment for cyanide, wore the mask to hide your face. Beatrice was your pawn, Mortimer your supplier. Clara screamed, No, I planted the vial to scare her, not kill. Someone else used it. Her defiance crumbled as Poirot produced the note fragment. Its script, hers. The pearl, the hem, the perfume, all confirmed her presence in the conservatory. The guests, watching, gasped as Clara's mask fell, her ambition exposed. Yet Poirot wondered, was she the sole architect, or did another pull strings? The locket's man, the fleeing figure, loose threads remained. Chapter 10. The Resolution. The twilight of a long day draped Ashbourne Manor in a sombre veil, its chandeliers dimmed, as if mourning the unravelling of its secrets. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand ballroom, where the midnight ball's revelry had given way to a grim tableau of truth. The murder of Lady Evelyn Ashbourne, her poisoned champagne, the diamond brooch with its cyanide compartment, the cryptic note, the mask hides all, the perfumed glove, the locket with an unknown man, the cyanide-tainted masquerade mask, the silk scarf, and the tiny key marked C had led to Clara Vane's unmasking as the killer. Yet Victor Crane's whispered warning, Evelyn's secrets go deeper, lingered in Poirot's mind, urging his little grey cells to probe for a final truth. The manor, a 1920s bastion of opulence, was now a stage for justice. Its suspects gathered one last time to hear the denouement. The air was thick with anticipation as Poirot faced Lord Reginald Ashbourne, Clara Vane, Dr. Richard Mortimer, Beatrice Lyle, and Victor Crane. Reginald stood by a pillar, his face ashen, his grief tainted by guilt. Clara, restrained by two footmen, glared defiantly, her pale gown a mockery of her former elegance. Mortimer, conservatory. You used the brooch's compartment to deliver cyanide, your perfume on the glove and mask, betraying you. Beatrice, coerced, planted the vial to frame Mortimer. The button, the pearl, the torn hem, all place you at the scene. Clara's defiance crumbled, her voice shrill. I hated her, yes! She blocked my rise, mocked me before society. I planned to scare her, to ruin her. But the poison, someone else used it. Her claim rang hollow, the evidence overwhelming. Poirot's mind flashed to Crane's warning. He summoned the businessman to a private corner, away from the crowd. Monsieur Crane, he said, you spoke of deeper secrets. Evelyn's past, the locket's man. Explain or face scrutiny. Crane's smirk faded, his voice low. Evelyn was no saint, Poirot. She planned to expose Reginald's embezzlement, funds siphoned from my ventures to hers. I knew, but stayed silent, hoping to leverage it against him after her death. I wasn't the locket's man, but I saw her with someone years ago before Reginald, a lover perhaps, who vanished. Poirot's pulse quickened. The locket, found in the conservatory, showed Evelyn with a man, possibly Crane himself, though he denied it. The diaries, betrayal by a friend, and close heart, pointed to Reginald or Clara, but Crane's revelation suggested a broader conspiracy. Returning to the ballroom, Poirot pieced together the final puzzle. Clara's motive was clear. Her ambition, crushed by Evelyn's slights, drove her to murder. The note in her hand lured Evelyn to the conservatory, where the poisoned champagne, her favorite vintage, known to Clara, sealed her fate. The brooch's compartment, a clever device, delivered the cyanide, its absence staged to suggest theft. The glove, mask, and scarf, all bearing Clara's perfume, confirmed her presence. Beatrice's coerced planting of the vial, under threat of exposure for theft, and Mortimer's coerced supply of cyanide, under threat of ruin, completed her scheme. The pearl, button, and torn hem were careless errors on her part.
Madame Clara forced me, sir. Said she'd have me sacked. I planted the vial, but I didn't know it was poison.
Her tears were genuine, and Poirot absolved her of murder, though not of complicity. Crane, questioned again, held firm. I profited from silence, Poirot, but I didn't kill. The lockets man, ask Reginald. He knew her lovers. Poirot's search of Evelyn's diary revealed a final clue. A coded entry about a past promise broken, tied to Crane's jilted engagement. The lockets man was likely a fleeting lover, irrelevant to the murder but a spark for Crane's grudge. His silence on Reginald's embezzlement was opportunistic, not criminal. Poirot returned to the ballroom, his deductions complete.
Madame Vane, he declared, you orchestrated this tragedy. Your ambition, your hatred, drove you to poison Evelyn. You used the brooch's compartment, stole it to feign theft, and left clues to frame Mortimer. Beatrice was your pawn, Mortimer your supplier. The note, the mask, the glove, all yours. Clara collapsed, sobbing, her defiance gone. I wanted her ruined, not dead. The cyanide was meant to scare her, but it went too far. Her confession sealed her fate, though Poirot doubted her claim of intent. It was murder, premeditated and cold. The guests gasped, the manor's tension breaking like a storm. Clara was led away, her trial inevitable. The brooch, returned to Reginald, was a hollow prize, his marriage and fortune tainted by betrayal. Mortimer faced disgrace, Beatrice forgiveness, and Crane no charges. His silence was not a crime. Poirot reflected in the conservatory, the scene of death now quiet. The lockets man, a ghost from Evelyn's past, was a distraction, its significance lost to time. The note, the brooch, the mask, all pointed to Clara's hand, her ambition the true poison. The human heart, he murmured, hides its darkest truths behind the subtlest mask. As he prepared to leave, the manor's chandeliers